Welcome to Whispers of the Ancients, a journey into the heart of forgotten civilizations. In this space of quiet reflection and wonder, we travel back through the sands of time to listen, to learn, and to remember. Let the echoes of the past guide us as we step gently into the world of those who shaped history long before history was written. Title: The Tiwanaku, Gateways to the Gods, approximately 300 to 1000 CE. Segment 1. On the shores of a sacred lake in the altiplano of present-day Bolivia, more than 12,000 feet above sea level, lies a vast, windswept plateau, a place where the thin air sharpens the senses and the horizon seems to stretch into myth. Here, at the edge of Lake Titicaca, the shimmering cradle of Andean mythology, the ancient city of Tiwanaku rose. It was a city unlike any other in the Andes, neither forested like the Amazon, nor coastal like Kerala or Moki. Tiwanaku existed in a world of extremes, freezing nights, intense ultraviolet sun, and dry, rocky soil. Yet from this dark land emerged a monumental city, a spiritual capital, whose stones still whisper of mysteries unsolved, gods unseen, and an empire that spoke through silence. Long before the Inca carved their empire into the Andes, Tiwanaku stood as a beacon of sacred tower. Its origin dates back to as early as 300 CE, but its legacy reaches far beyond, into the spiritual heart of the Andes and the political blueprint of later empires. Segment 2. Foundations in Myth and Stone. At the core of Tiwanaku's worldview was Lake Titicaca, believed to be the birthplace of the sun and the origin of the first humans. According to later Inca myth rooted in older traditions inherited from Tiwanaku, the god Viracocha rose from the waters of the lake to create the world. The city of Tiwanaku was laid out, not as a practical settlement, but as a cosmic stage. Its architecture was aligned with astronomical phenomena, built with a sacred geometry that connected the heavens, the land, and human ritual. The most iconic of these monuments is the Archeology pyramid, a massive stepped structure with subterranean channels and a central sunken court. Nearby stands the semi-subterranean temple, a haunting space lined with stone heads protruding from its walls, each one distinct, perhaps symbolizing the many cultures unified under Tiwanaku's spiritual authority. But none captivate the imagination quite like the Gate of the Sun, a single megalithic arch carved from andesite, decorated with a central deity, possibly Tiwanaku, a thunder or solar god flanked by winged attendants. This portal may have been more than just symbolic. Some scholars suggest it marked astronomical events, including solstices and equinoxes, or even encoded a solar calendar. Segment 3. Engineering in the high Andes. Surviving in the unforgiving altiplano was no small feat. Yet Tiwanaku engineers devised one of the most sophisticated agricultural systems in the pre-Columbian world. They built raised fields called sucacolas, which were elevated planting platforms surrounded by water channels. These channels absorbed solar heat during the day and released it at night, preventing frost and extending growing seasons. This ingenious method allowed Tiwanaku to feed tens of thousands, even possibly hundreds of thousands across the region. Agricultural surplus became the lifeblood of Tiwanaku's expansion, allowing the city to flourish and its spiritual influence to grow. The engineers also constructed canals, reservoirs, and drainage systems, adapting their designs to the terrain and hydrology of the altiplano. The mastery of water management reflected not just technical skill, but a spiritual relationship with the earth, or Pachamama, the revered mother of all life. Segment 4. A civilization without kings? One of Tiwanaku's enduring enigmas is the absence of depictions of individual rulers. Unlike the Moki or Maya, there are no grand stelae portraying kings or bloody battles. Tiwanaku art emphasizes collective imagery, deities, processions, and ritual offerings. This absence of royal iconography has led scholars to speculate that Tiwanaku may have operated under a theocratic system, where priests or councils wielded power in service to sacred mandates. The city's layout, focused on ritual plazas and temples rather than palaces, supports this idea. Their ceremonial art is filled with powerful imagery, staff gods, feline motifs, hallucinogenic plants, and sacrifice scenes, but it all seems to represent ideas rather than individuals. Tiwanaku's leaders may have ruled through religious legitimacy rather than personal cult. Segment 5. The religion of sky and stone. The spiritual core of Tiwanaku civilization was an elaborate cosmology that linked people with divine forces. Their pantheon included sun gods, stormbringers, fertility deities, and spirits of the mountains. These entities were often symbolized through composite animals, felines, birds of prey, serpents, and geometric motifs. Ritual was central to life in Tiwanaku. Offerings of gold, silver, textiles, and food were made to the gods, as were human lives. Sacrifices likely carried out during significant celestial events. The aim was not cruelty, but reciprocity, to maintain the balance between the earthly and the divine. Sacred intoxication was also common. The San Pedro cactus, known for its hallucinogenic effects, may have played a role in religious ceremonies. It transported priests into altered states where they could commune with gods, ancestors, or elemental forces. Segment 6. Expansion through influence, not conquest. Around 600 CE, Tiwanaku began to expand its reach not through armies, but through ideological and cultural influence. Across the southern Andes, pottery styles, religious motifs, and architectural patterns resembling Tiwanaku appear in distant communities from northern Chile to southern Peru. Unlike the later Inca who ruled by force, the Tiwanaku elite may have integrated other regions through ritual alliances, pilgrimages, and exchange networks. Tiwanaku ceramics, especially the iconic carros or ceremonial cups, were likely traded and gifted, spreading religious ideology like a gentle tide. Tiwanaku's imperial model was decentralized, relying on colonies and sacred outposts rather than direct administration. These satellite communities mirrored the rituals and aesthetics of the capital, but adapted them to local conditions. Segment 7. Ceramics, art, and the language of symbols. The visual world of Tiwanaku was deeply symbolic, imbued with spiritual meaning and governed by order. Their artisans crafted fine ceramics, textiles, and stone carvings that reflected not just beauty, but theology. Ceramics featured mythical animals, dualistic symbols of life and death, sun and moon, water and fire. Some vessels depicted ritual scenes, masked figures, priests in trance, or offerings being made, each painted in a standard palette of red, cream, black, and orange. Stone sculpture was another key medium. The most famous are the monoliths towering statues of priests or gods, carved from single slabs of volcanic stone. They hold ritual objects, wear elaborate tunics, and often bear tears running down their cheeks, a motif scholars interpret as both spiritual suffering and divine vision. The so-called Bennett monolith, standing over 7 meters tall, is a masterpiece of Tiwanaku artistry, covered in hundreds of tiny symbols and geometric forms. Its true meaning remains elusive, but it stands as a silent testimony to a complex and highly codified spiritual worldview. Segment 8. A society of specialists and pilgrims. Archaeological evidence suggests Tiwanaku society was hierarchical but cooperative, likely organized by occupation and ritual role. Artisans lived in designated quarters. Farmers tended to the raised fields outside the city. Religious specialists and elites operated within the sacred core. Tiwanaku may have functioned as a pilgrimage center, drawing thousands of visitors from across the Andes, like Mecca or Jerusalem in later times. Tiwanaku's temples were not just religious spaces, they were destinations that unified people through shared belief. Pilgrims likely brought offerings, participated in seasonal festivals, and reaffirmed political or kinship ties. In return, they carried home sacred items, ritual vessels, icons, perhaps even sacred knowledge, extending Tiwanaku's influence without warfare.